Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Oh, this is perfect. Bagpipes. Even though I like bagpipes, I also find them a little creepy. If I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of bagpipes, I'd be a little scared at first. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want to deprive our whole cul-de-sac of sleep for years with loud music in the middle of the night? Okay. Since we were but small babs, our neighbors, their kids, and their friends have had this lovely habit of either driving into or straight tearing into the neighborhood with no regard for the safety and well-being of themselves or the rest of us, and blasting pop and rap music from their cars as they sit there, idling and waiting for whomever they were picking up or dropping off. No surprise, they took their sweet time, and sometimes no one was picked up or maybe even dropped off. So you can imagine the pure, overwhelming joy we experienced when we found out some of the drivers only came into the cul-de-sac to lean out the window briefly to talk to someone, all while that music practically rattled the foundation of our houses. Our dad at the time, and still, can work late into the night and early into the morning, sometimes coming home in the middle of the night and other times not returning until later the next morning. So you can imagine what he had to deal with, poor Dad. However, then the day arrived. Our mom had to leave relatively early for something, my memory's mashed Pop-Tart, sorry, and Dad was not home yet. Sick and tired after so many nights and mornings having been woken up or kept awake, it was quiet now and we were alone. It was time. Now, we were still exhausted, but we rarely had opportunities where we were alone and less likely to get grounded by our parents as they were not home. And so as the sun began to peek over the trees like a Midwestern version of the opening to The Lion King, we carried a radio out of the house and stood at the end of the guilty neighbor's driveway. Cranking up the music as high as it would go, put in our chosen weapon, a cassette tape of bagpipe music, and flipped the music on, and gently waking the whole house, and probably every other neighborhood for several blocks with the song of our people. It was not our intention to involve innocent people, but we were pretty young and hadn't completely thought the whole plan through. Our lack of a complete plan was made very apparent as the front door flew open and outran the parents. Our terror-filled little screams followed us back home as we thought we would literally die. As soon as we were able to get inside and lock the door, we turned off the music, stuffed the radio away, and promptly pretended to be sleeping. Eventually, we did fall asleep, but were woken up by our own parents. No surprise, but the neighbors were all not too happy with us, though only one family snitched. We got in so much trouble for that, grounded for weeks, but it was totally worth it. While the cars kept coming into the cul-de-sac at all hours, they no longer played music. We had won. And our next story. Revenge on a coworker who left me to work 9 hours without a break. Bit of background. So for a summer at university, I worked as a cafe manager in a large British homeware store. I originally started as a normal cafe staff member, but was promoted within a week as the old manager was leaving due to ill health. This caused friction with the other staff as they'd been there longer, and one of them, lazy worker, LW, was older than me, so he thought he should have gotten the job. Now, LW trained me when I first started, and he showed me some tricks to make the start and close procedures quicker, i.e. allowing you to leave early or mess about for half an hour before the cafe opened. These tricks were really just not taking temp readings for the fridges and food and making them up, as there were about 20 places to take readings for in the cafe and the back room, including 4 massive freezers. On to the story. After I'd been promoted, he'd been getting more and more late and uncooperative and just generally being difficult. One Sunday, it was meant to be me, LW, and another staff member, but the other staff member had a family emergency and couldn't come in, which was fine. Then LW didn't come in, and no one could get a hold of him until 2 hours after his shift started, and he said he had food poisoning. I had my doubts, but was too busy trying to teach my manager, the store manager, and another random store employee how to cook everything and use the tills and coffee machine. I ended up working 9 hours without a break and having to open and close the cafe on my own. I was pissed, to say the least. Then I noticed LW had posted on Facebook photos of himself out drinking the night before and going to a family barbecue today. Cue some revenge. Two of the larger freezers in the back had stopped working that day, so we had to put large out-of-order signs on them. I knew LW was opening the next day, so I also tidied the area under the till and put the temp sensors in a box with a label so they weren't in the normal messy pile. The next day, I came in before the cafe opened and was walking to the back room with my manager to inspect the freezers when I saw LW on his phone and asked him if the temp readings had been done. He yells, "Of course," and brings the sheets over and apologizes for missing yesterday as he was just so ill. As he walks away, I looked at the sheets, and sure enough, he had a reading of -10 OC for each of the broken freezers. Showing this to my manager, and we went to check these magically fixing freezers, which were of course still broken. I also showed her his Facebook photos and told her the tricks he tried to teach me. Oh boy, was she mad. She stormed out to the cafe and started screaming at him about his lying about the temp readings and how he could kill someone if the food was too warm overnight and a bunch of other things. I may have sat on a display sofa near the cafe with some other staff who didn't like him, giggling at the yelling and his fumbled excuses. He tried to say it was the temp sensors that were wrong and he didn't see the massive signs on the doors. Trouble is, he couldn't find the sensors when asked to prove it, and that led to even more yelling when my manager came behind the counter and found them instantly in the box labeled temp sensors. He had to redo all his training, was supervised by my manager for a month, and he had to work weekend shifts, which he hated as it got in the way of his band playing. I left not long after that, and I still think about his face after being caught out. Damn, the moron is lucky he wasn't fired. He should have been. Falsifying documentation could risk people's health. And our last story. After HR investigation, Mr. Karen got fired. So the whole thing happened a few days ago. Cast, me, IT intern, other intern, engineering intern, secretary, the newly hired secretary on her second or third day of work, I believe, Mr. Karen, the rude guy. Interesting detail. I'm this company's CEO's daughter, but got internship through regular channels in HR, so no one knew it at the beginning. I will also be using present times because, yes. On to the story. So I'm working away with another intern, and I'm in the same office that the secretary works in. We're working on the new production line in the factory, and I'm working out some database kinks. I made that database, and I'm mighty proud of myself. Because the dress code for interns is non-existent and the company's dress code in general is pretty lax, I'm rocking a pretty blue skirt and elegant black blouse. Also, I'm a blonde girl in her 20s. Suddenly, Mr. Karen barges in and starts to yell at me. I caught only parts of that, but it included the R word, secretary, dumb bee, etc. It took me a while to piece the whole story. Apparently, the guy was supposed to sign an important deal with the client, but someone, presumably the new secretary, made a mistake in the client's name, typing it into the file, turning it into a curse word. I can't tell you the name, of course, but it was like the client being Mr. Woray and someone typing Mr. Whore by accident. So Mr. Karen's shouting at me. The other intern is peeing his pants, and I have no idea who this guy is. I don't work with people outside the production circle, clients or anything. I just make the apps and databases that hold them. I try to tell him as much, but Mr. Karen's louder than me, and he says I'm in big trouble, lost us a client and crap. I kept most of my cool as I worked in retail for a long while before, so, devils don't scare you anymore if you've been the assistant manager in hell. He says he's taking me to the CEO. So naturally, I go to the CEO's office. Mr. Karen comes in, all respectful suddenly, and starts explaining the situation. As he's about halfway through the first sentence, Dad, CEO, interrupts him and goes, "Wait, let me hear what she came to say first. She's working on the line starting on Monday, so everything has to be done today." Since I'm already there, I tell Dad about the issue with the system and the fact that they'll need to make a reboot that'll make 2 other lines stop as well. He schedules the reboot for 1800 the same day and sends me on my merry way. Mr. Karen started to get the picture because he didn't stop me when I went out. I hid in the toilet to write this stuff down for my friends and reported this guy's awful behavior on the way home. It turned out Mr. Karen was supposed to fill those things himself, but he pushed it onto his secretary and she misspelled the name in a document. Mr. Karen got a warning. Secretary got told to not accept documents from Mr. Karen anymore. He's to fill out every single document himself, even those that usually would be secretary's responsibility. And I presume he met the real secretary at some point. I met secretary on Friday while rebooting the system for the new production line. Seems like a really cool person. She's also working the afternoons exclusively at this site, so you can't meet her before 17:30 unless you drive to the metalworking site. She also got a reprimand, tough, as she did misspell a client's name, resulting in a curse word on official papers. P.S. I still have no idea what department or site Mr. Karen is at, but I hope his computer crashes so I can go fix it. Update. After HR investigation, Mr. Karen got fired. A bunch of things came out, and another employee gets fired along with him. Apparently, guy number 2 was covering for him on some occasions, but more people came out with statements against Mr. Karen and guy number 2, including some emails where Mr. Karen and guy number 2 pushed their own work onto others, claiming that they're higher in hierarchy and someone else told them to pass on the job. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.